We will be starting in 1 minute, inshallah. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Dear brothers and sisters, family members, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for coming today. Inshallah, we will be remembering our dear Marhum, Shoaib Ali Zahir Punjani. The program is, we'll start with Surah Yasin by Brother Ali Manji, followed by Hadith-e-Kisa by myself, some Marthia, Majlis by Shaykh Anwar, Jaffer, a couple of speeches, and inshallah we'll have niyaz at the end. We're here to remember Marhum not just as a family member, a friend, a father, an uncle, a grandfather, a husband. He was someone who always offered great counsel to me whenever I sought it. And despite the illness that he went through and despite the challenging moments in his life, always maintained a very resilient and positive demeanor. So today's majlis, inshallah, will be offering a hadiyah to him. There is a beautiful hadith by our sixth holy Imam, Imam Jaffer Sadiq alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, who narrates in Al-Kafi that whenever a believer dies and a living believer performs a good deed on his behalf, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants the reward of that deed to the deceased. But not just that, then he also grants an equal reward to the person who is doing the deed, the living believer. So inshallah we dedicate this majlis and all the acts of ibadat in it to the ruh of Marhum. With that, let me welcome Brother Ali Manji for Surah Yasin. Loud salawat.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة الفاتحة.
حديث كسا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا كم قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ قال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي يتاذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله فإنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. صلوات. الفاتحة. We'll now have Marthia by Brother Muhammad Datu. Please welcome him with a salawat.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. मेरी आँखों اشکوں کی جری ہے لوگوں، غم شبیر کی دولت یہ بڑی ہے لوگوں، لاش عباس پہ زینب کھلے سر آئی ہے، لاش عباس پہ زینب کھلے سر آئی ہے، منہ چھپا لو کہ قیامت کی گھڑی ہے لوگوں، منہ چھپا لو کہ قیامت کی گھڑی ہے لوگوں، سرخ رو ہو گئی تربیت آغوش رباب، سرخ رو ہو گئی تربیت آغوش رباب، موت سے آنکھ جو اصغر کی لڑی ہے لوگوں، موت سے آنکھ جو اصغر کی لڑی ہے لوگوں، سینہ اکبر کا جو برچھی سے ہوا ہے زخمی، سینہ اکبر کا جو برچھی سے ہوا ہے زخمی، چوٹ لیلا کے کلیجے پہ پڑی ہے لوگوں، لاش اصغر پہ سکینہ کا سنبھلنا مشکل، لاش اصغر پہ سکینہ کا سنبھلنا مشکل تیر کی نوک جو گردن میں اڑی ہے لوگوں تیر کی نوک جو گردن میں اڑی ہے لوگوں میری آنکھوں میں جو اشکوں کی لڑی ہے لوگوں غم شبیر کی دولت یہ بڑی ہے لوگوں رحم اللہ من يقرأ الفاتحة.
Thank you very much, Ahsantum. Please can I welcome Shaykh Anwar Jaffer to deliver his lecture today. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع لذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وما صل على والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين وفقنا الله وإياكم بعلم وعمل صالح إن شاء الله بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن تطع أكثر من في الأرض يذلوك عن سبيل الله آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. One of the beautiful principles and philosophies of history is that history tends to repeat itself over and over again. Although history and historical events may manifest differently, if you go deeper into the root issue of every event that takes place in the world, you realize that history tends to repeat itself. When you look at the time of the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa alih, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad, when he begins with the establishment of the religion of Islam and he propagates Islam to his people, there was an opposition. They rose against him and they engaged in many different battles over the period of 13 years. The Prophet reacted and responded in the most efficient way. But the enemy that the Prophet was confronted with was an external enemy, an enemy that was willing to fight with the sword, with the shield, and the Prophet reacted appropriately. Over the years, the decades that were to come, you find that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, again, they faced or they were confronted with an enemy, but the enemy was not as clear as the mushrikeen of Mecca during the time of the Holy Prophet. Although they were still considered to be enemies, they manifested in different ways. Some of them as scholars that began to introduce new ideas to the religion of Islam. And yet you find that the Ahlul Bayt were always in the front lines defending the values of Islam, the values that were represented by the Holy Prophet of Islam. As the centuries continued, you find that our scholars took on that responsibility during Ghaibat al-Kubra. That when you had all of these different ideas that were now coming forward by a number of majority of scholars within the Muslim Ummah, the scholars took on that responsibility to defend the true sunnah of the Holy Prophet of Islam and the message of the Ahlul Bayt. Today, you find that we are still confronted with that same ideology. We're confronted with that same principle, that the ethos, the principles of Islam is continuously being attacked. But we need to kind of understand what these attacks are so that we are able to defend the true message of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And that is the discussion of worldviews. That is the discussion of paradigms and the war and the battle between different paradigms and worldviews. If you were to, for example, observe how we live our lives in the world today, we are confronted with many different ideologies and many different worldviews. The Hindus, they have their worldview. The Christians, they have their worldview. The Chinese, they have their worldview. The Japanese, they have their worldview. Every demographic within this world, every religion, every culture has their own worldview. Likewise, the religion of Islam has its own worldview. And many a times you'll find that there are contradictory values that are promoted. The values that are promoted by a non-Islamic worldview in comparison to the Islamic worldview. And this has manifested itself so clearly within our societies that these worldviews are fed to us and our children either directly or indirectly. So you've heard of terms like modernism, for example. That's a worldview, it's a philosophy. What is modernism? Modernism basically means that the modern world is better than all of the traditions that have come before us. So because we live in 2025, it means that we are in the peak of humanity. How our forefathers used to behave in the 1980s, 1970s, or even 500 years ago has no value for us anymore because they lived in the ancient times. So now, when you bring this discussion and you apply it to the Islamic ethos, I'm sure many of you have come towards these discussions where someone may say, well, you know, this particular ruling or this particular behavior existed 1400 years ago in the deserts of Mecca. How is it applicable to us today? This is modernism now manifesting itself. Islam, within the Quran, Allah disqualifies this argument that just because nations that have come before you does not imply that they were worse off they were in a worse position than you are now. The Quraysh of Mecca, they rejected the message of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Allah responds to them in Surah Al-Yasin, a surah that we all read constantly, in every occasion. In Surah Al-Yasin, Allah proposes a challenge to these mushrikeen. Why is it that you reject this message? Is it because of your arrogance? Where does this arrogance come from? Is it because you see yourself to be better? There have been past nations that have come that are or were far better than you. The nations of Ad and Thamud, they were able to build great things, homes within the mountains. Yes, that technology we don't even have today in 2025, but they used to do it. Just because nations existed before does not mean that they were worse off than you currently. Perhaps they were better than us. We don't know. But Allah destroyed them such a way that there was no remnants of their civilization that has existed for us today. We only know about these existence or these civilizations because it's mentioned within the Quran. So you have this concept of modernism. Then you have the concept of liberalism. What is liberalism? That I, as a human being, I am free. I am free. I have been born liberated. What is this religion telling me that I have to pray 5 times a day, fast during the month of Ramadan, stay away from alcohol, stay away from relationships that are not considered to be halal? All of these, they shackle me, they chain me. But I, as a human being, I am free. I can do whatever I want. The Quran answers this again, that if you do not become the slave of Allah, then you become the slave over your own self. Quran directly challenges this, that there are those who follow their own selves rather than following Allah. Essentially, when you look at the human being is programmed to follow. Who we follow, that is a decision within our heads. Then you have, for example, the concept of humanism, feminism, all of the different isms that you can promote, that you come across. All of these are different ideologies that have embedded themselves within our societies. Humanism, everything revolves around the human being. That the human being's rationality is at its peak. We have so much information available to us. We have built on the philosophies of philosophers that have come before us, great minds that have come before us. We don't need an external source of information to tell us how to live our lives. The Quran rejects this completely. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, that man has been created weak. Weak meaning what? That the rationality, the intellect of the human being is not sufficient for life. Why do we exist? What's the purpose of our existence? Try and answer this question using the intellect and rationality. You're not able to. So Revelation interjects and tells us why we exist and what the purpose is of our existence. Ultimately, when you look at all of the different isms that exist in the world today, if you combine all of this, it attacks one fundamental aspect of every society. And this aspect that exists in every society, because it is attacked, it is under danger, it is under threat. And that is family values. All of these different ideologies, if you go deeper into their examination, it destroys family values. That's why Islam promotes family values, that whatever the circumstance, whatever the state you're in, do not neglect the importance of family. Beyond this, the Quran even begins to mention the ayah that I began with, that never in your mind think that because the majority are following a path, a manhaj, that they are considered to be correct. If you were to obey the majority, Allah is saying in the ayah, if you were to obey the majority, you will soon find yourself being taken away from the road to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The path that takes you towards Allah, the majority will actively pull you away from that road and take you somewhere else. And this is a wake-up call for us, that whenever we read an ayah like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks about the majority, He condemns the majority worldview. That do not think that the standard of truth and reality is in their hands. Rather, it is often in the hands of the minority. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. What's interesting is that when you examine these different ideologies, these different worldviews, many wouldn't be able to understand the outcome and the consequences of this. Until and unless these worldviews are embedded within people, and when people begin to carry out living their lives based on these worldviews for decades, that's when you begin to see the effects that exist within the communities, within societies. In its earlier stages, people adopt these worldviews because it's attractive. But when it's adopted practically and followed through for decades, that's when people begin to see the consequences. And so modern academics have actually done some research on this. And they've found baffling answers that even they don't have answers to, baffling ideas and consequences that even they don't have answers to. But a person who has wisdom, even Muslim academics are now coming forward and saying that the only essence that is being attacked within societies are family values. So, what it does is it promotes what is known as individualism. All of these different ideas culminated promotes what is known as individualism. Individualism is what? Is when you give authority to your own self. That I, as an individual, I am most productive, isolated from everyone else, whether it be my own family, whether it be my own society, whether it be my own culture. I thrive when I am alone as an individual. So if I have certain values and my family doesn't ascribe to these values, then I will let them go. I will dissociate myself from my family so that I can help myself grow and become better within the values or on the values that I have. I nurture myself. So my personal growth has a higher importance than the growth or the values of my families. My personal independence, self-reliance, it is more important than anything else. My personal identity is better and more greater, much more profound than the identity of my community. All of these are different values are now promoted by the culmination of the different worldviews and the different ideologies. Your value comes from who you are as an individual. The religion of Islam rejects this as well. Through the Holy Quran, Allah constantly talks about values, community values, family values, that these cannot be compromised no matter the circumstance, no matter the different problems that may arise. Just to divert from this, modern academia have realized the consequences of this. And you've come across many different articles in newspapers, whether it be online or active newspapers, you may have come across these. That there is a constant worry about birth rates. That birth rates are falling, and they are falling drastically. Or for example, marriage rates are falling. Or for example, divorce rates are rising. You know, very recently someone was quick to be corrected. You know, someone mentioned that divorce rates are rising. Someone from the audience asked a question and said, well, actually, modern statistics, contemporary statistics are showing that divorce rates are falling. It's the opposite. Divorce rates are falling substantially. They said, well, yeah, it makes sense because marriage rates are falling as well. So marriage rates are not rising, and yet divorce rates are falling. Same thing. Or for example, the idea of loneliness. People are more lonely now than they were before. When you look at the rise of social media was what? It was created so that people are able to network with each other, but it's had the opposite effect. Facebook and all of these different aspects of social media were created so that people are able to network. But then you find that children are left alone in their homes, flicking through Instagram, and that's made them even more lonelier than before. So that aspect of socially engaging with the general public, social media has done a terrible job in allowing people to network. All of these have culminated and have existed or have exacerbated this problem in society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the Holy Quran begins to promote a different version of how society begins to thrive or how society can thrive. And that is through maintaining family relationship. Maintaining family relationship. You know, during COVID, we have a doctor sitting in front of me. During COVID, there was an issue that arose within the UK. There was an issue that arose within Japan, within Italy. That people were so scared to leave their homes. They were self-isolating. And because they were self-isolating, some of them even passed away in their apartments, in their flats. And because no one was communicating with them, their bodies were left in their homes, began to decompose, until the smell reached the neighbors. That's when the authorities were alerted. And when the authorities found these bodies, they found that this body has been left decomposing for over 2 to 3 months. This is the effect of all of the different ideologies manifested within society, that people live individually. They have no communication with the outside world, not even within their own families. That a simple phone call to see how you are, how your health is is non-existent. Italy, there was a rise in these such cases. In Japan, likewise, to the extent that the Japanese formulated an organization that goes around cleaning the apartments of those who have died months in advance. Those bodies that were decomposing in these flats, they had a whole cleaning service that was established. These numbers, however, were just a few hundred. Less than 200 cases were found within the UK, but that's a lot of cases as it is. Statistically, it's minuscule, it's minute. If we have millions in population, a few hundred here or there is insignificant, but it's a lot, 200 cases at least. If this continues, if society continues to live in such a way, then these will soar in the next 10 to 20 years. The Quran steps in, interjects. And the way the Quran interjects is authoritative. That you may not realize the value of it, but revelation understands the value of it. That sometimes we have to suspend our rationality and follow ta'abbudiyya, to follow what revelation says. And that is that Silat al-Rahim has value within society. That it becomes mandatory on every Muslim, on every individual who identifies as a Muslim, to follow the values of Silat al-Rahim. Strengthening the smaller units that exist within the household, so that when different families engage with each other in the community, you find that everyone values families. It strengthens the bond of not just the family unit, but the community as a whole. To establish bonds between one's relative, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says it beautifies one's character. You learn how to deal with issues within the household so that you can now take it outside of the household and be able to engage with people who don't may necessarily agree with you. It says it beautifies one's character. It fosters generosity. It purifies the soul. How? How does it foster generosity and purify one's soul? It comes to the discussion of love and what exactly love is. When you love your sibling, when you love your parents, when you love your children, you make sacrifices to make sure that they are happy with you. That's what love is. That you're willing to obey them, you're willing to be at service of them, sacrificing your own needs over their needs. And that beautifies the soul. It makes you much more of a generous individual. And then he says that here Allah promises the individual that his life will be prolonged. In the sermon of Fadak, Bibi Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala. She begins to speak about the philosophy of marriage. She says the whole purpose of marriage is so that you may increase in your numbers. You may increase in your numbers. Our forefathers used to have 14, 15 brothers and sisters. Nowadays, it's gone the opposite direction. One is considered to be too much. Yes, that's how society has changed in a matter of 50 to 60 years. You find, for example, the religion of Islam engages in explaining that family ties is absolutely it's mandatory. It cannot be compromised, whatever the cost. Yes, there are certain families, for example, the situation may be extremely difficult to hear at times, where the safety of the children is compromised. Here, the person should understand that wisdom and aql has a role to play, and how that relationship is to be dictated. But when you look at these exceptional cases that we see usually within communities and societies, these are considered to be exceptional cases. And the aql tells me that exceptional cases does not override the general rule which Islam has set forward. That silat al-rahim is wajib. Maintaining family ties is considered to be wajib. There's an ayah in the Holy Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Protect your families. Protect your families and yourselves from the fires. وَقُودُهَا النَّاسَ وَالْحِجَارَةِ. It's a very interesting idea that Allah presents. He says that yourselves, as well as the stones and the rocks, are considered to be the fuels of fire. Two very different creations of Allah. Yourselves, as in us, and rocks and stones are considered to be the fuels of fire. Why? Allama Tabatabai explains this. He says that our actions is what is considered to be the fuels of fires. So protect yourselves, develop taqwa. Develop taqwa within the household so that you safeguard yourself as well as your families from the fires of hell. How do we do so? We create an environment where we teach our brothers, our sisters, our parents, even our children, that sins have negative consequences, that we move away from sins because they are the fuels of the fire. That not necessarily we should follow our whims and our desires. They should be controlled. The aql has dominance within our lives. Or for example, we train our family members towards nobility, towards honorable actions, to always and constantly adhere to what Allah has mandated within the Sharia, to provide a pure and a spiritual environment so that the souls of those who live in that household are nurtured towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at the philosophy of marriage, this is what marriage is. The famous ayah that we recite when a nikah is being recited. We have created you from a pair. Why? So that you may nurture each other towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The idea of compromisation, that I sacrifice my desires, my whims, that which I am closely associated with to make sure that you are happy. That is what promotes growth within a family. The beautiful aspect, when you approach it from a fiqh perspective, the fiqh of Islam says that silat al-rahim, there are only two things that are required from you. You're not required to make grand gestures, to go out of your way to engage in silat al-rahim. Something very small as a phone call or a message on WhatsApp suffices. A conversation that is just a few minutes long suffices. You don't have to go out of your way to make grand gestures for that to be considered as silat al-rahim. As the narration says, even saying salamun alaykum suffices at times, depending on how that relationship is. Or for example, to pray for them. And that doesn't even require interactions. That when you finish your salah, you pray for a family member that you've not spoken to. And that falls within the remit of silat al-rahim. No one wants to die and for the families not to be aware of it. That level of loneliness we don't wish for anyone, let alone the believers within the community. Not even towards our enemies that we despise would we want them to be taken away from this world without anyone knowing. There has to be some level of communication that exists within the community. So in front of all of the different ideologies that exist, that we are confronted with on a day-to-day basis, we refer and we fall back to the essence that Islam has provided for us, the ideology of Islam, which is that at times we may not realize the need for silat al-rahim, but there is a place in it within our communities, and we cannot move away from it. When we turn to another verse of the Holy Quran, Allah says, الَّذِينَ يَصِلُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهِ. There are those who engage in creating a relationship, bihi an yusala, and that is in direct relation to the family relationship that exists. That emotional bond that exists within the family, it helps everyone that is involved. It's an oasis for the human being, a platform for them to grow and to nurture themselves. Silat al-Rahim creates a level of love, a support system for all family members, whereby every member of the family can nurture a level of respect, a level of affection, support, cooperation, that when they leave their houses and they engage with the wider public, whether it be at work, college, university, if it's so difficult, they can come back home and be refreshed. It can recharge their batteries by simply interacting with their families. That is the purpose of Silat al-Rahim, where all members of the family, they act as a support system for each other. There is a level of belonging that exists amongst the members. It raises their confidence. As the hadith explains, he says that the family, what it does is it serves as a wing with which one flies. What happens within the household, it prepares the individuals to then go out and to interact with the wider community. And that cannot be compromised, whatever the case scenario. Conflicts are inevitable. But again, it should not be strong enough to destroy family units. When we turn to Karbala, the beauty of Karbala is that the ethos of what manifested in Karbala was because of the family unit of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. That level of respect, love, integrity, all of that manifested in Karbala. How did it manifest that you had even children walking up to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, pleading and begging to be sacrificed in preserving the message of Imam al-Hussein? It wasn't a duty for them. They weren't duty bound to go and fight, yet children were begging the Imam to go and fight. That is the manifestation of love that began within the household, that was then seen apparent in the battlefield of Karbala. You have the likes of Ali al-Akbar, the likes of Aun and Muhammad, that they went running to Bibi Zainab alayhi salam, complaining to her, saying that our uncle refuses us to fight. She quickly approaches Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and says, my brother, what will I say to my mother when she asks me that why did your sons not engage in this battle? Not only did the children want to fight, but the parents were advocating for them to go and to sacrifice their lives. From amongst them, Abdullah, the son of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, a young child who jumps on the body of Imam al-Hussein in his final moments. When the enemy strikes him, he strikes the young child and severs his arm. Upon which the Imam cradles him in his chest and says, have patience, just a little while longer, you will see my uncle. It was in this scenario, in this time, that Shimr then shoots an arrow and it strikes the chest of this young child. This was the brother of Qasim alayhi salam. Qasim, when he comes to the Imam alayhi salam, there is that dialogue that takes place. He says, you are an amanat that was left behind by my brother. I cannot let you go. Qasim then presents a letter from Imam al-Hassan to his brother Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And in this letter it was written, my son, if you find your uncle to be wahid and farid and ghareeba, who is isolated, a stranger in the lands, then I expect you to go and defend him. When he then enters the battlefield, Hamid ibn Muslim narrates, he says that he entered, it's as if we saw the full moon radiating into the battlefield. And then he calls out, he says, for those of you who do not know me, إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن سبت النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لا تسوق صوب المزن. It says, if you deny me, if you do not know me, let me tell you who I am. I am the grandson of Rasulullah. I am the son of Al-Hassan. This is Hussein, the grandson of Rasulullah. You have taken him as a prisoner amongst the people. May the rain never fall on you ever again. When he engages in battle, he kills just a handful of men. Then an enemy came towards Qasim. Qasim, according to Hamid ibn Muslim, he began to tie his shoelace. He refused to fight until his shoelace was tied. With this enemy, when he saw his opening, he came towards Qasim and struck him on the head. Qasim fell from his horse onto the ground of Karbala. Then he called out to Aba Abdullah, Ya Amma adrikni, adrikni. Imam al-Hussein enters the battlefield and he strikes this enemy. When he strikes the enemy calls for help. Then all of the soldiers, they mounted on their horses and they came towards this friend of theirs. But then when they approached Qasim, they say that Qasim's body was caught under the hooves of the horses. They began going from right to left and left to right. When the dust cleared, Abu Abdullah came towards the body of Qasim. He places down his abaya and collects the body of Qasim. When he carries him, Hamid narrates, he says, when we saw Qasim, he was being carried by the chest of Abu Abdullah, but we could see his feet being dragged on the sands of Karbala. When he took the body back, he enters the tent, places the body alongside Ali al-Akbar. He then sits between the two young men, his son on the one side and the son of his brother on the other. Sitting in between, he begins to cry and lament. Then all of a sudden, the ladies began to wait outside of the tent. Zainab came across them. Oh ladies, what do you do? What are you doing? Ramla, she says, Ya Zainab, we do not have the heart to enter the tent as long as Abu Abdullah is inside. Layla says to Zainab, Ya Zainab, tell your brother to leave, because we want to see our sons. Zainab enters the tent. She then tells Abu Abdullah that Ramla and Layla are waiting outside. Ya Abu Abdullah, they refuse to enter as long as you're here. She carries Abu Abdullah outside. Ramla, when she enters and she sees Qasim, she begins to wail and cry out, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. If we can recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the Marhum, inshallah. Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha.
Thank you very much, Shaykh, for that enlightening talk. We haven't got long for the program to finish. Next, we'll have a short speech by Brother Ali Abbas, who is Marhum's son. Please welcome him with the Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ali Abbas Punjani. I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. It means a lot to me and to our family. Special thanks to Shaykh Anwar Jaffer for your thought-provoking lecture today. Thank you to all the reciters and Shabir Uncle from the Al-Zahra Center for allowing us to host this event, and for all his hard work that made this happen, as well as all the volunteers that have helped us today. I'd like to ask everyone to recite Surah Fatiha for my dad, Marhum Shoaib Al-Zahra Punjani, Marhumin from Punjani and Jiwa families, and all the Marhumin of families present here today.
Last but not least, I just want to call up my cousin Mahdi. He wants to say something that I think you'll want to hear. Mahdi, are you around? Please welcome him with a salawat. Okay. Whilst we wait for him, I think let's stand up for ziyarah. Tawajjuh ziyarah, please.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا أبا فضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن. عجل الله فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهوره ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على.
If you just take a seat, inshallah it won't be more than 5 minutes of your time.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My elders, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you very much for attending and just take a few moments of your time. So I'm Mahdi. I am Marhum Shoaib's nephew. And I'm here today to talk to you about a very different appeal. So just to give you a background about me, I've been working in marketing, market research. I've been away in the States, so many of you won't have seen me for a long time. But I didn't like that job. I didn't like what it was, and I wanted to do something to help people because there's too much suffering going on in the world. So I decided to move to the charity sector, and that was also inspired by my parents, who the Punjani family have been strong supporters of. And I decided to join the Noor Relief Fund in managing their campaign this year, their Ramadan Aid campaign. So if you could just click, please. Now, this is a problem we have all had in this last few days in particular, and that we will have in the last few months. Well, not a problem, a challenge. We've seen on WhatsApp, there are so many people sharing different worthy charities that they want you to support. And it's very hard to pick which ones to choose from, because we don't necessarily have all the money to be able to support everyone, even though that we really would like to. So it's really difficult in that way. But if you just click and click again, there is a way. There is a way you can help a lot of people. And if you click again, it's only for a very small amount. And I'm going to show you how. So if you could click again, please. So I'm going to tell you about a Ramadan referral scheme. If you could click. So what we're asking for is just £1 a day this Ramadan. It's fully automated when you sign up. Sign up is very easy. Now I want to tell you what this £1 will do. It supports 30 charities. So that £1 is designated to a different charity each day. And the beauty of it is that you can even choose which charities it goes to. And there are hundreds of them that you can choose from. And if you don't have time, you can let the app automate it for you. It's fully flexible to you, but know that these are very worthy causes and I'll be telling you about them. On top of that, it adds £100 to our Ramadan Aid Fund at no extra cost to you. So you're giving just £1 a day. You help 30 different causes and you give £100 towards our campaign. I've not heard of anything like this before. This is one of the reasons I got involved in pushing this scheme so much. But it's only available for a limited time. We don't get access to it for much longer. If you could click on the next screen, please. So when I said you could pick on loads of different charities, let me show you which ones, so you can support refugees. These are examples from my list that I created. So I'm supporting people in Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Afghanistan, Myanmar, the Sudan, many other places, and they're all fully verified, so you know the money is going to the right place. And then as well, orphans and widows. Noor Relief Fund has always had a focus on helping the most vulnerable. They've helped over 10,000 orphans, which is something that's still mind-blowing to me. So I'm decided to help widows in Rohingya, disabled children in Sindh, Palestinian and Uyghur widows and children. Sorry, if you could go back, please. And then there's a load of other noble causes as well. You know, ones that aren't necessarily the ones that you first think of in the Ramadan kind of appeals. So like, for example, cochlear implants for children, infertility treatments for people who need them, and then domestic violence, human trafficking survivors, water aid initiatives. There are, honestly, the amount you can choose from is amazing. If you go to the next page. So where does that £100 free boost at no extra charge to you go? So that goes towards our Ramadan Iftar food initiative, and we've been running this for a few years now. It means basically we provide food baskets to those in need in some of the poorest countries in the world. If you go to the next slide. So these are the four areas rather. So East Africa, Pakistan on the bottom left-hand corner. This picture of this child always breaks my heart a little bit. He's in Yemen. And then the women you see there, they're only women there because there's no men left. That's in Iraq. So normally if you gave £30, that would be able to feed a family for 2 weeks. But by giving that £1 a day and getting that £100 boost, we can feed an entire family and feed an entire family for a month and contribute towards feeding another family by more than half for that month. Just think of the impact you can have. So yes, if you go to the next slide. So this is a way of donating like no other. It's truly unique. For £1 a day, all automated, so it's hassle-free. You support 30 noble charities. Again, you can choose, or the platform will choose for you. And then finally, it gives that free 100 boost towards our campaign to get the iftar baskets to the families who need them most. Enrolling is quick and easy. Now this is the main part. Click. It takes minutes to enroll. Honestly, it takes minutes. And when you click on the link that I'll give you, there's full instructions about how to do it. It's really straightforward. It will just by enrolling, you already unlock that £100 boost. We forget to do these things. We always feel like we're going to do them, but we forget. This is an opportunity to do it now if you would like to. I can't force you, of course. But we always say we'll share it, we'll forward it, but we never get round to doing it ourselves. If you click again. So this is the link you can follow. And that's a QR code you can scan. If I can see a brother scanning it right now. If anyone else wants to just scan the QR code now, you're more than welcome to. I encourage it. We'll just leave that up there for 2 minutes. Maybe not 2 minutes or 30 seconds. And remember, all you have to do is just do the enrollment stage now. You can choose the charities at your own pace later. And if you click again. So we'll just leave this on here, okay? And that will have the QR code and the link. If you need to know more about the scheme, you want to learn more, you can speak to me. You can speak to my cousin Masima or my Taira Masi as well across on the other side. We have all enrolled. We've all picked different charities. You can ask us about the charities we've picked and explain more about the scheme. Thank you so much for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Ahsan. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, for listening. Inshallah, that will be on the screen. Inshallah, niyaz will be served. 2 lines here in the gents and 2 lines in the ladies. Please form the lines.